Okay, so on the absolute value notes, I'm going to start on the inside this time. Okay, so when we solved the absolute value equations, we got the absolute value by itself, and then we had to have a positive equation and a negative equation. And we subtract 5, and here we divided by -1. So we got 2 answers. So nothing's going to change today. We're going to solve these just like if there's an equal sign, but the only thing that's going to change is the inequality. Okay? So you have to use your imagination a little bit. And even if you can't use your imagination, try. So if I have less than or equal to, doesn't less than kind of sound like the word and? Right? Less than, imagination, and. And greater or greater than is going to be or. So yesterday when we graphed ands, the ands graphed together, right? We had 2 endpoints and we connected the dots. When we had an or, we had the 2 endpoints and they went out. That's the only thing that's going to change today. So look here. Here I have less than, right? So when I finish graphing, these should graph together because it's an and. So let's see. So I get x minus 2 is less than 12. And then I get my negative equation. So when I add 2, I'm going to get x is less than 14. And then on this side, I'm going to divide by -1. And that means I have to flip my inequality. I'm going to add 2. So I got a positive equation and a negative equation. And when I divide by negative, I have to flip the inequality. So I have -10 and 14. You think these are going to be open or closed circles? Open. And then let's test. This says x is greater than -10, so that goes this way. And x is less than 14, so that goes this way. So they connected just like we thought they would. So less than is going to connect with an and. For B, this is greater, so I think these will go out. So I need my positive equation and my negative. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And divide by 2. So I get x is greater than or equal to 3. And I have a negative now, so I have to divide by the negative. So what happens to the inequality when I divide by negative? It has to flip. So I get 2x minus 2 is less than or equal to -4. So when I add 2, and divide by 2, so I have -1 and 3. And I know they both get closed circles because of the lines. So I want x less than -1, so that goes this way, and x greater than 3, so that goes that way. So it did graph out like I thought it would. Wait, please. You got it? Okay. So what happens when you divide by a negative number? The inequality has to flip. So on C, can you make that 12 a negative? Because it should be a negative there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is what? -5. Why did I not divide by 5? Because the negative separates it, right? So that's like a -1 there. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 5. And then what do? I have to divide by -1 because the absolute value is not isolated yet. So then I have to flip the sign. So I need a positive and a negative answer. Whose phone is that? Oh, Lord. Okay, so we're going to subtract 3 and divide by 2. So when I divide by -1, the inequality has to flip. I'm going to subtract 3. Because I divided by -1. So right here, is this going to graph in or graph out? It's greater, so it's going to go out. So I'm going to have -10 and a closed circle, and this way, and a 7, and it's going to go that way. Yeah, right? I mean, nothing's changed, right? The only thing that changed is the graphing in and graphing out. So if you look at your worksheet, oh wait, we're not done, sorry. Go back, flip back to the front now. That's okay. Okay, so on the front. So less than, is that going to graph together or apart? Together. So if I'm Put an open circle on 3, where do you think the other circle is going? -3. And why is that true? That is correct. Because what happens if I put a -3 in the absolute value? -3 and +3 give you the same answer, don't they? So I'm going to have -3 and connect. So this time it's greater, so it's going to graph which way? Out. So I'm going to put an open circle on 5, and that's going to go out. And where does the other circle go? -5. And it goes that way. So for example 2, it says write an absolute value inequality for each graph. So what numbers are those open circles on? 1 and +1. So if I do the absolute value of x and I put the 1 here, it graphed together. So what sign goes between? Less than. So this time it's graphing out. So I'm going to do the absolute value of x. And what's the number I'm going to guess? 2.5. And then which way is the inequality going? Greater, because it graphs out. So that's what 1 through 4 looks like. So on number 6, what do I have to do first? Subtract the 9, divide by -1, and then get your 2 equations. What do I do first on number 8? Divide by -9, right? Because these are side by side, so that means multiply, and the opposite of multiply is divide. So on the back, on number 9, add 3 and then divide by what? -1. What do I do on 10? Multiply by 6. Good job.